And I wanted to give a bit of the history of how the book came about and what's in the book, at least as much as I can in 7.5 minutes. So this is what we're going to talk about. So this book actually has been in the works forever. It feels like forever to me. And the genesis of this book goes all the way back to my first job at a university. I studied engineering, not marketing, but the first job I got out of engineering school was in the marketing department at a startup. And I was assigned to a product that was kind of the dud product. It was not the product that the company was known for. It was the other product that didn't sell. And so I was in charge of that, and at one point shortly after I joined, we repositioned it. So the thing was originally positioned as Microsoft Access. You know, Microsoft Access is like a personal database, a little bit better than a spreadsheet sort of thing. We were going to be an access killer. Like anybody needs that. Nobody needs that. Nobody wants it. We launched it, and we had this access killer thing, and it went nowhere. And we noticed that people were using it in ways we didn't expect. And so one of the ways they were using it was as an embedded database on these newfangled things called laptops. So we repositioned it as an embedded database for mobile devices. The thing took off like crazy, and it actually lives on today as an SAP product called SAP iAnywhere. It's $1 billion business. So that twigged me to the idea that positioning is actually kind of an important, cool thing. But at the time, I had no idea what it was because I had an engineering degree and I literally couldn't spell marketing. We got bought by a big company, and in the process of that acquisition, my boss left. I inherited the marketing department, and the next thing you know, I've got 50, 60 people reporting to me globally. I've got millions in marketing budget, and I don't know anything. Like nothing. And so I faked my way through that thing. I have a systems design engineering degree from the University of Waterloo. That's pretty much all you get out of that is like outrageous confidence. So you just go in and you're like, how hard can it be? It can't be as hard as mechanics of deformable solids, huh? That was hard. And so I faked my way through that job. I lasted for my couple of years, do my earn it, then I went to another startup, and we did the same darn thing. We had a product. It was a generic CRM for enterprises. We repositioned it as a CRM for financial services. The thing took off like crazy. We got acquired for over $1 billion. Everybody was happy. And so this brought me to this realization, like positioning is this super important thing. I should learn what it is and how to do it in a repeatable way. Then I went to marketing school. And so in marketing school, if you take classes, which I have taken many, and you read books, like the book you're going to read after tonight, in all these marketing classes and books, they're very good at telling you what positioning is. And there's a really famous book on positioning called Positioning: The Battle for Your Mind by these guys called Rees and Trout. It was written in 1982. Before the internet. Most of you are probably born after 1982. And if you go to marketing class, they will give you that book and you'll study it, and it's fantastic at defining what positioning is. And so this is more or less the definition. Positioning defines how your product is the best in the world at providing something that a well-defined set of customers cares a lot about. Put another way, positioning defines who your target customer is. It defines what your differentiation is. It defines what your differentiated value is to customers. You can think of it this way. If marketing and sales is the house, positioning is the foundation upon which the house is built. So that's what I learned from that book. That's what I learned from all these courses. This thing is super important. It's the foundation for everything. It's fantastic. What I did not learn was how the heck you do it. Because nowhere in any of these books did they tell you. So I got this idea that it wasn't my job. So in all the startups I'd been at, I was given positioning by the founder, or I was given positioning by my boss, and they said, this is what we are. We're an access killer, or we're a whatever. And my job was to be the marketing person and make that thing sing. So my idea was, all I got to do is be a genius at marketing, and it doesn't matter what they give me. I'm going to turn that into the unicorn sparkle ponies. So they can give me their crappy position. This is a very technical diagram. They're going to give me their crappy positioning, and then I'm going to apply my marketing genius, and then this is going to happen. It's going to be amazing. And instead, what happened was, they said, oh, here's this access killer, or here's this generic CRM, or here's this whatever. And so DePoop went into the system, and then I applied my amazing marketing genius, and what I got was slightly nicer poo. That's what happened. So then I felt bad, and I said, you know what? It doesn't matter how good I am at this stuff. This is going to be terrible. I actually have to fix this problem myself, even if my boss doesn't think this is my job, even if whatever. If I don't fix this, all I'm going to be is the turd polisher. And I don't want to spend the rest of my career doing that. None of you do. So then I went back and said, well, this is a fundamental marketing thing. There must be a process for doing this. And what I learned in marketing school is this. So what this is the positioning statement. This is, of all the things I've learned in marketing and business in general, this is the dumbest thing I've ever come across. So I took a class at Northwestern University, which is like considered the fancy-pantsy marketing school in the United States. And in the positioning section, this is what they taught me. They said, okay, we have this statement, and you do this Mad Libs kind of thing, where you just fill in the blanks. We are a blank for blank that does blank like blank. And I'm in class, and I'm like, I got this engineering thing, right? So I'm like, in the back, excuse me. So how do we know what goes in the blanks? And they said, well, trust me, you'll know. And I'm like, no, I don't. I don't actually know, because every product I've worked on, I could position it in multiple different markets. How do I know what the right one is? And nobody could answer this question for me. At one point, I got a job at I'm looking for my friend from IBM. I got a job at IBM, and I was working for this guy, Paul Reveau, and so IBM's got this world famous product release process. They literally sell it as an offering. If you want to learn how to release a product, IBM will come and teach you. It's world famous. It's whatever. And so I'm going through my first product release when I'm at IBM, and there's a section there called positioning, and I'm like, hoo-ha! I'm finally going to learn how super duper companies do this. And I get to the positioning section, and it's literally it's one page, and it's this thing. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So my boss comes into the office, and I said, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing this. This is stupid. And I just went on this big rant. I told him how stupid it was. And he's the patient. And he said, And then he said, April, do you enjoy your paycheck? And I said, yeah, I do. And he said, just fill out the darn thing. So then I learned there was an expression I learned at IBM. It's called malicious compliance. This is when you do something strictly for the purpose of showing the person you're doing it for how dumb the thing is. And so the thing I was working on was a database, and so I filled it out, and that was like, my database was a database that ran on things that weren't a mainframe. And so I filled this out, and I said, for IBM buyers of database things, my database thing is a database that provides database stuff unlike other databases. Never looked at it again. This is a hot garbage. That's what this is. That's my hot garbage thing. So, this brings me to how this book came about. So, it seemed to me that there should be a process for doing this. We should have a methodology, and there should be a way to do it in a repeatable manner. And the first thing I decided was, I'm going to figure out how to do this, and I'm going to do it in a systematic kind of a way. So the first thing I decided was, look, if I look at the positioning statement, what's really important is the blanks. If I took the blanks and deconstructed it, and I could figure out how to fill in each of the blanks, then I could get this done. So in my opinion, the 5 components are this. It's what are my competitive alternatives? What are the unique attributes or features of my product that the alternatives don't have? What value does a customer get from those things? So what with those features for a customer? And then there's what customers care about that value, or my customer segmentation, who the thing is for. And then the last one is my market category. Am I a CRM or am I a CRM for investment banks? And if I could figure out how to do each one of those things, then I could figure out how to do positioning. It's that simple. But then when I started looking at it, it turns out, you know why we have no methodology for this? Because this is actually really hard, figuring out each of these things. And you have to do them in the right order. So I started testing this with the companies. So first I built it for myself, and I tested it when I was in-house as a VP marketing. And I tested doing it in different orders. And if you started in the wrong spot, what you got was positioning, but it wasn't necessarily good positioning, meaning it wasn't competitively differentiated. Then later, I started teaching a class on positioning at Communitech in Waterloo and the DMZ here, and I used all these poor sucker startups in there as guinea pigs for this thing. And so I taught a class, and I had people doing this stuff and seeing how did it work, and did it matter where we started? And it turned out the answer to that question is, yeah, it actually really matters where we started. So the methodology I came up with looks like this. You have to start with competitive alternatives. And when I say competitive alternatives, I don't mean competitors. So you, as a startup person, know an awful lot about your segment, and there might be a lot of little startups that are in your segment that compete with you for venture capital money, but they don't necessarily compete with you on deals. So your competitive alternatives are actually, if you went to your best customers, your happy customers, and said, what would you do if we didn't exist? In B2B, a lot of the times, they never mention those other competitors. They'll say, I'd hire an intern, or I'd use a spreadsheet, or I'd do it in Word. This is important. If you start with the wrong comparable, then you will get to the wrong definition of what your value is. If I say my competitor is some other little startup, and I say my big value proposition is I'm way easier to use than that other startup stuff, but then you talk to the customer and the customer says, yeah, you know what I would do? I would hire some interns. Do you know what's really easy to use? An intern. It's like, Jimmy, get me a coffee, do that thing while you're at it. Super easy to use. My differentiator can't be ease of use if the thing you're comparing it with is an intern or a spreadsheet. Anyways, that's the first step. The second thing is, once you know the right thing to compare it to, then you say, okay, what have I got that's unique? Capability-wise, what do I have that's unique? Then I go to these unique things deliver this value. Then I say, who cares a lot about that value and why? Which is my actual customer segmentation. And then the last piece of that is, if I'm trying to communicate that value to these people, what am I? Meaning, what market do I intend to win? Then it gets even more challenging. So once I figured that part out, I was like, okay, now I got a process and I can do it. Then you got this problem with the last bit. I'm going to figure out what market to position myself in, and it turns out there's 3 different ways you can do that. So either I go into the market and I'm going to head-to-head take on the leader, or I go into a market and I'm going to niche out a market and just take on a piece of the market, or I decide my stuff is so cool and so different and so whatever that I'm going to create an entirely new market. For each of these things, there's reasons why you would do it and why you wouldn't. It depends on how competitive your market is and a lot of other things. Now, you might be sitting there saying, that's a lot of stuff, April, slow down. I'm sitting here in the wind tunnel of words, but I only have 5 minutes, and it's okay, because I wrote it down in a book. Right? Thank you. And now you have the book. You didn't and so there's no excuse. Now you know everything, and it's all in there. And that's my 5 minutes, 7 minutes, maybe. Yeah, time's up. But I have one more thing. So I actually have a couple of things. So I'm going to introduce the speakers and stuff. And I've been on this book tour doing a lot of speaking. And this is pretty exciting for me because I've been monkeying around with this book like since the dawn of time. So there's a couple of things I would like you to do as the audience. I'm going to give you jobs. So the first job is I got a hashtag, obviously awesome. And what I would like to do is go back later on Twitter or LinkedIn or wherever your favorite place is to share things and look at that hashtag and see pictures of y'all doing stuff at this event. So that's the first thing. I want you to take some pictures, and I want to go back and experience the joy tomorrow. What's that? Both, yeah, the TechTO hashtag too.
No characters for your tweet, just the hashtag.
Yeah, like it's okay if you use 100 characters on hashtags of your tweet, but this hashtag would be good. and so that's one thing. And I'm really into photos, so it would be really cool if you took some photos, because, when you're actually in the event and you're running around, you don't get to do as much stuff as you do. So what I do is I wake up the next morning and go, oh, that looked like such fun. So that's what I want to do. The second thing is I went to an event 2 weeks ago in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I was the keynote speaker at the biggest startup conference in Iowa. Yep. And it turned out it was really fun, but they caught me off guard because I flew in right before my talk, and I came in and I did my talk, and they were a really great audience. And at the end of the talk, everybody stood up and did this giant, long standing ovation. And I was like, wow, I killed it. And it turned out that that's a thing, and they do it for everybody at the entire conference. And I thought, that's cool. We should just do that. So I would like you to do that. It's good exercise. It's good exercise, and you don't just want to sit there all day. So what's going to happen is this: I'll introduce the speakers, and the speakers will come up, and they'll do their talk, and it'll be great. And then you will be motivated to rise to your feet and give them a standing ovation, and we will all be happy. Yes? Try it out now. What an audience. They're fantastic. Oh my God, this is, see, I feel great, you feel great, everyone feels great.
Do you want to take questions? Do you want to get any questions now? Or?
We could do questions. Do you want some questions, or should we just jump into it, or we could do questions at the end? Yeah? You have a question?
Did you just make that up?
No, just standing up? No. I actually went to that thing, and everybody stood up, and I was like, wow, that's fantastic. And I was a little disappointed later when they said, yeah, we stand for everybody. But it still felt good, and I thought, I'm going to do that. Next time I'm in charge, and today I'm in charge. So oh, hi, you made it. It's good to see you. So do you want me to just introduce next speaker right now? Can we do that? Unless you have a question. Anybody want a question? We'll have time at the end. Yeah.
Don't be shy.
Do you need a microphone?
I can just project. You talked a lot about value prop. What if you have multiple value props and they're all layered? So like there's some that are leading and there's some that are lagging.
Yeah, so the question is, what happens if you have multiple value props and some are leading and some are lagging? Most of the time, you have multiple value props. Sometimes you have sometimes you have value props that are important at different stages of a buy cycle too. Like some are retention value versus acquisition value. And so you just have to capture those and then be aware of how you do it. For some things like the homepage and places where you're constrained, you're going to have to stack rank them and decide what's most important. But the rest of it is going to depend on the campaign. Like for certain campaigns, we'll have a certain target and you're going to adjust the value props. Other campaigns will have other targets, and you'll have to adjust the value prop there. What you don't want is 1,000 value props all peanut buttered all over the place, which sometimes startups get into that where they just have too many and they're trying to be everything to everybody, and so no one can figure out what they are. So I think you should have primary ones and then maybe secondary ones that you get into later. And then you may have some that are retention ones that you don't talk about at all when you're trying to land the customer, but your people in customer success are making sure that everybody's talking about a lot.
Question to follow on that. Actually, I saw your talk at the Growth Conference at Mars.
Oh, yeah.
And immediately took this exercise to the founder and head of product to do this, and we did it a couple weeks ago.
Cool.
And one of the debates that came out of it was one of our main value props is we are significantly cheaper than the alternatives in the market, which are very traditional. And the debate that came out of that was we don't want to race to the bottom.
Right.
So what do you do when your strongest value prop that's resonating with your market is the price, but you don't want to set yourself up to be super cheap?
Yeah, so the question is, what happens if your big value prop is the price, but you don't want it to, you don't want to just, like, so first of all, the first question I'd be trying to push on is, why are you so cheap? Why if that's really all you got to go on, eventually the other guys can just discount and beat you. You've got to have a differentiator that's different than price.
So to follow on that,
Yeah.
our price is so we have two main differentiators, the price.
I think she does consulting, right? So
But we could talk about it after if you want. But if I can predict where I think you're going with that is you'll have the differentiators and the price is kind of the kicker, right? So, but the thing is like, if the differentiators on their own can't stand without the price differential, then I'd be worried about that, because it means that the people don't put a very high value on those differentiators. And so either you're not describing the value in real enough terms that they're saying, yeah, that's kind of nice to have, but oh, you're way cheaper, oh, okay. Because the problem is anybody can take a price differentiator away from you at any time, because price is elastic. I can charge whatever. And the worst part in startups is you'll get some new entrant that's venture backed and they don't even care if they make money, ever. Right? So you can't have price be the differentiator, because you'll get something like Uber, right? Like the reason you all love Uber is because it's so cheap. You know why it's cheap? It's because it's subsidized by venture capital. At some point, they'll run out of venture capital, and you're going to pay twice as much for taxis. And you're going to go, oh, shit, what happened to those old taxis? Those were cool and cheap. And, anyways, but that's, like, the price differentiator is, it can help overcome an objection like, geez, I really love your stuff, and I really love your value. I'm just not sure about you guys because you're really small, and these other guys are big. And so sometimes you can get around that with, oh, we'll give you a lower price to start, or we'll allow you to get going for cheaper. But if you see the value, then they should pay for the value later. So I don't price is not really a differentiator. It can go away anytime.